Welcome to Lesson 3, Part 2. In this section, we're going to learn إضافه.
This video is brought to you by the Critical Language Service. Visit us on the web at www.criticallanguageservice.com.
The إضافة. The إضافة is best thought of as being Arabic's equivalent to the formal English use of the word of. It's one of the key structures, the most common used one in Arabic grammar. It usually consists of two or more nouns placed together to form a relationship of belonging. So, you have here admission plus office. In English, you would say office of admission. This is the equivalent of إضافة. Now let's look at it in Arabic. In Arabic, we say مكتب القبول. It's admissions office. So, we have مكتب القبول, admissions office. So, a way to think about it is, when you have a word like مكتب, which is indefinite, means office, the second word, al-qubul, gives it definition. It becomes more specific. What kind of office? What office? Admissions office. مكتب al-qubul. Notice how the second word, al-qubul, starts with alif lam and it's definite. So that also what gives definition to the first one, al-qubul. So in a simple إضافة like this one with two nouns, only the second one, takes alif lam. And it goes without saying that the first one never takes alif lam. Note that there is no equivalent to apostrophe s in Arabic. So to say, for example, the boy's jacket, you must say the jacket of the boy. Examples: منطقة Brooklyn, the borough of Brooklyn. جامعة New York, the University of New York. Notice how in the منطقة Brooklyn example, there's no alif lam in the second word. That's because Brooklyn is a definite, it's a pronoun and it's definite in nature, so it gives that kind of definition to the borough. Same thing for جامعة New York. You see that New York is a proper noun, so it gives the definition to جامعة. What جامعة? جامعة New York. And also another thing, see the ta marbuta. So جامعة on its own, we don't pronounce it as ta marbuta, but when it comes into إضافة, you pronounce it as ta. جامعة New York. Complex إضافة. Let's first review the simple إضافas that consist of two nouns. دفتر الطالب. دفتر الطالب. The notebook of the students or the student's notebook. Remember, we said دفتر is indefinite and should always stay indefinite. And the second word define the first one, and it has to have the definite article alif lam. مكتب الأستاذة. مكتب, the first noun is indefinite, the second one is definite. الأستاذة, the office of the professor, the professor's office. عائلة والدي. Literally, it's the family of my father, my father's family. In this case, we don't have alif lam on either nouns. It's because walidi is definite with a possessive, ضمير متصل, and it's my father's family. So it's definite because it's not just any family, it's my father's family. Okay? So the possessive pronoun is another form of definition. Now let's examine the following إضافة, which contains four nouns. ابن عم والد البنت. ابن عم والد البنت. Four nouns, as promised. Which means the son of the uncle of the father of the girl. Or simply put, the girl's father's cousin. So complex إضافas, like the one above, contain more than two nouns, obviously, in which all non-final nouns behave like the first noun in a phrase and never take alif lam, never definite. Case in point, al-bint, but ibn, am, walid, all stayed indefinite without alif lam. One last rule. The possessive pronoun can only occur on the final noun in an إضافة. Remember, like in عائلة والدي, same goes for رقم تليفوني. my telephone number. Now let's look at what makes an إضافة. First of all, let's look at housework. Housework is a compound word in English, and it can be expressed as إضافة in Arabic. Like housework can be translated kind of into شغل البيت. شغل البيت. Notice how البيت takes ألف لام. ألف noun is a definite article, kind of the equivalent of the, and it defines the word شغل. So first we had work, any kind of work, and then it gets more specific with بيت, البيت. شغل, what شغل? شغل البيت. Okay, and another thing, very important thing to know, is that the first word can never take L. See? Can never take alif lam. Only the second word, because the second one has to be definite in order to give its definition to the first one. So again, شغل البيت is housework. إضافة. Now let's take another example. We saw جامعة New York. If you look at New York, it's a proper noun, and therefore definite without L. Pretty easy. We said that you need alif lam for the second word to define the first one, but if the word itself, the second word itself, is definite, in this case it's a proper noun, so you don't need alif lam. Let's make it clear. Did you see me? I just crossed the alif lam. So we do not write alif lam in front of proper nouns. I think I should say this, but جامعة New York is an إضافة, and you don't need alif lam. Another example, let's look at مكتب القبول again. مكتب القبول. So pretty simple. إضافة is straightforward. You have two nouns. First one is indefinite, and the second one is definite, either by alif or if it's a proper noun like جامعة New York. So keep in mind, the first word in إضافة never, ever, never, ever take alif lam. Never. Did I say never? Okay, so here مكتب القبول. So the first word is an إضافة, that is definite by definition. This is إضافة, and the first word is definite with this one. This takes alif lam, this doesn't. Another thing to keep in mind is that in إضافة, the ta marbuta must always be pronounced as ta. So you have جامعة alone, you don't pronounce it as ta. But once it gets into إضافة, like in جامعة New York, did you hear the ta? Again, جامعة New York. This is how it should be pronounced, as a ta. جامعة New York. Of course, except if it for the final words in إضافة, if for some reason you get ta marbuta here, you don't pronounce it. Only when it's on the first word between the two. Okay? So again, if it's in the first word, it's pronounced as ta. If it's in the final word, it's pronounced as usual as nothing, like kind of an aspirated ha. Okay, now let's take a look at the big picture. So إضافة consists of two or more words put together to give definition to the first word. We saw the simple إضافas made of two words like شغل البيت, and we saw that the second noun, should always be definite, either by alif lam, the definite article, alif lam, L, or by a proper noun, if it's a proper noun, like جامعة New York. جامعة New York. We also saw that the first noun never takes alif lam, only the second one, because it's going to give definition to the first one. And also that if it comes, the first noun, if it has ta marbuta at the end, you should always pronounce it as ta, regular ta, like جامعة New York. Complex إضافة. Let's first review the simple إضافas that consist of two nouns. دفتر الطالب. دفتر الطالب, the notebook of the students or the student's notebook. Remember, we said دفتر is indefinite and should always stay indefinite. And the second word, define the first one, and it has to have the definite article ألف لام. مكتب الأستاذة. مكتب, the first noun is indefinite, the second one is definite. الأستاذة, the office of the professor, the professor's office. عائلة والدي, literally it's the family of my father, my father's family. In this case, we don't have ألف لام on either nouns. It's because والدي is definite with a possessive, ضمير متصل, and it's my father's family. So it's definite because it's not just any family, it's my father's family. Okay? So the possessive pronoun is another form of definition. Now let's examine the following إضافة, which contains 4 nouns. ابن عم والد البنت. ابن عم والد البنت. 4 nouns as promised. Which means the son of the uncle of the father of the girl, or simply put, the girl's father's cousin. So complex إضافas like the one above contain more than 2 nouns, obviously, in which all non-final nouns behave like the first noun in a phrase and never take ألف لام, never definite. Case in point, البنت, but ابن عم والد all stayed indefinite without ألف لام. One last rule. The possessive pronoun can only occur on the final noun in an إضافة. Remember, like in عائلة والدي, same goes for رقم تليفوني, my telephone number.